So while I'm chasing our dog around the ADU with the drywall ready to go in, I thought I'd talk you through the process I went through to find a contractor to do the drywall. So this was one where I didn't have someone lined up, didn't necessarily have any recommendations. So I actually started reaching out to people maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I wanted to start. And I ultimately found Ricardo through Facebook, and I thought he did a really good job. I got quite a few quotes. Some were coming in quite a lot more than what I was expecting. I was expecting to pay about $6,000 for this. You know, that seemed like the higher end of the range that I should be expecting based on the square footage. But some of the quotes were coming in way more than that, you know, way over 10 grand. You know, one of the things I realized in order to get good quotes for drywall, you really need to understand, you know, the specification of your project. So with that is the square footage, you know, how difficult the ceilings are going to be, what type of drywall you want. I actually wanted to go with 5/8, which is obviously thicker than 1/2 inch, and really just for soundproofing, for nice straight walls. You know, I'd heard that you get a slightly nicer finish with 5/8, but it's a little bit heavier, so with that comes an additional cost. And of course the material is a little bit more expensive, although really not that much more expensive. You know, another thing to think about is the detail that you want around your windows. Do you want the drywall to go inside the window casing, or do you want it just to the edge and you're going to trim it out later? In which case that's easier for the drywall guys. And then of course, what sort of level of finish do you want? So I went with a level 4 finish, which is not a full skim coat. It's really just sort of taping and mudding the seams a couple of times. But it comes out with a pretty nice finish, and that was fine for me. So you can see the guys getting started here. These two guys are absolute beasts. They managed to put up all the sheets of drywall, hang the sheets of drywall within 1 day. They worked very efficiently. You can see them cutting out the windows there, and this is the finished product. It creates a lot of mess, but they cleaned it up pretty nicely afterwards, and this was ready for the inspection. So the inspector wants to see all of the screws with adequate spacing landed onto studs. So this passed the inspection, and once that passes, then they can begin the taping, the seaming and taping process, and then the sort of finishing process that we'll get into in a minute. So you can see here they've done the outlets. You know, one thing you want to be sure of, I didn't really check this, but thankfully they didn't miss any of the outlets or lights. Sometimes they can place the drywall over the top of those boxes, and you might not realize till later. So one thing that's worth mentioning here is that we decided to go for 5/8 drywall throughout. Normally people go for 5/8 on the ceilings and 1/2 inch on the walls. We actually had to do 5/8 on the property line walls for fire rating, but I figured it would be worth just doing the entire thing in 5/8 just for extra durability, straighter walls, and better sound insulation. But it does have a knock-on effect for your interior door jambs that are typically designed for 1/2 inch drywall. So here's the bathroom. You can see they put some of the purple drywall up. That's the mold resistant drywall. That's where the water heater is going to go. But they didn't do the entire bathroom because a lot of that's going to be covered with hardy board. So that'll come a little bit later. But that's where the washing machine and dryer are going to be. And so you can see they're getting ready to start with the seams and taping. Now they've protected the floor. that was definitely an important step because that drywall mud gets everywhere and it becomes very difficult to remove. So the red paper very much helps. So you can see they've done a good job with the electrical outlets there. These are for cabinet lights, I think. Those wires coming out of the wall. Got our extractor hood there. And then back into the bathroom, you can actually see put in some of that hardy board now. So they've already put some corners on there. More hardy board up against where the vanity and the toilet is going to be, and that's where the shower and tub are going to be. That's for the bathroom extractor fan. Spotlights in the bathroom. That's the dry vent, and that's the one that's concealed in a 2x4 wall, which was a little bit difficult to do. Not much space for a 5-inch pipe, as you can imagine. And so they did a good job around the mini split heads as well. And so here you can see a little time lapse of them getting started with the seaming and taping. So they're going to come in a minute and going to get started on that. Here we go. So they're setting up with their drywall mud, and they've got their scaffold, they've got their machines, the bazooka to do the taping. So I think they're just prepping some of the harder to reach areas, putting a bit of mud on the seams there. He's putting some protective wrap around the mini split. Definitely a good idea. You don't want that drywall mud getting in your cooling fins. So you can see him using the bazooka. Makes pretty easy work of doing those taping seams. And these guys, this firm had different guys to do every part of the job. So these guys clearly knew what they were doing, just like the drywall hangers and the finishes that you'll see at the end. So one thing to keep in mind with drywall work is that it's a step-by-step process, and the drywall mud has to dry before you can move to the next step. That can sometimes take a day. Really depends on the weather and the heat. You can add some fans to try and help with that, or turn on the heating if you have heating. In this case we didn't. But just keep that in mind. You know, this project, I think it took about 4 or 5 days in total, with these guys working flat out. And at one point we were waiting for the mud to dry before the guys could come back in. So yeah, I think they are making good progress here. I think it's a hot day, so things are actually drying pretty quickly. You can almost tell from the color of the mud. It goes from that yellow color to a white color when it's dry. So they may even be coming back for a second round in a minute. They're doing some of the nail holes there. Yep, and they put another layer of mud on top of the seams here. So I think this was a pretty easy job. The ceilings weren't too high. It is 11 feet on that taller side, but easily accessible with a ladder. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're not doing drywall returns around the windows, so that'll be trimmed out later on. Just going around with another pass. You can see that color difference between the wet and the dry mud. The wet mud's more that creamy yellowy color. So this was a pretty good day of work for these guys. I'd say they worked pretty hard. And tidying up, and they're out of there in a few minutes. Yep. So this is the drying process that I was talking about. They added quite a bit more mud, and the thicker the mud is, the longer it takes to dry. And I was pretty keen to get moving onto the next steps with this project. So we cracked out the fans, had them going overnight, and eventually got the team back in once everything was dry. But this is getting close to being ready for the finishers, who will come in and sand all of that. As you can see the bathroom, the bedroom here, you can see that it's still wet in the corners there. This was a room that took a little bit longer to dry because it's not so much in the sun. It's a little bit more enclosed. You can see all that drywall mud that collects on the floor. So the finishers have come in. It eventually dried off, and they are sanding down all of those seams, and you can see them looking with that light for any imperfections. And that's the son of Ricardo. So yeah, pretty dusty process. Have a lot of respect for these guys doing this kind of work. So looking with their lights, trying to get out all of those imperfections. And I'll be honest, there are still some imperfections left over at the end. And I noticed some of them in the paintwork today. Now it's finished, but these guys did a pretty good job. And so this is a level 4 finish that we're aiming for here. Yep, so they've taken up the red rosin paper and just cleaning up. So this is almost the finished product. So you can see the boss has arrived, Ricardo, and he is just quality checking the team's work, and you'll get to hear from him in a second. He's just going over everything and just maybe doing some last minute sanding of any imperfections that he sees.
I think this guy's really good.
Okay, so this is Ricardo.
Yeah.
His company has done all the drywall here, done a really good job. So Ricardo, tell me a bit about your company.
Yeah, my main company is RSS Finished Drywall. We're coming from Modesto. And we come in and measure this job, and we're counting 76 sheets, 8 foot. And because we don't find it in the store, 12 foot close right here. And it's hanging in one day.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
It's hanging in one day. We clean up, and we put a free fuel before taping. That way, we put a hot mud in the joints and any flat because we don't want to crack in the future. So that's why. And we make a level 4. That's three coats. It's a tape, tab, skim, and last coat is a level 4. We put 3 coats on the screws, 3 coats on the flats, and 2 coats in the angle. And after that, we sand it. It looks very well for painting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we already make a double check, and everything's look very well.
And how long did it take to do the whole job?
It's 4 days work.
Yeah, but big crew.
Yeah, big crew. Yeah. Five guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 1 day for stack. It's a couple hours for stack the material. 1 day for hanging. 1 day for taping and tap. In the same day because it's really hot and it's dry faster. And next time we come in and skim in the morning, and afternoon is already dry, so we put the level 4 in the same day. And next day, today, we come in and sand in and clean up. So So for all my jobs, we cover the floors. We don't like it nice floors. We like
Yeah,
it really
that's a
nice.
good idea.
So we cover floors, everything's good. More the corners, you can see the corners is really square.
Yeah.
The high part, really square. That's what we like in smooth. Yeah, we gotta make sure it's really square, the corners when we get them. And we'll put it right there, we're gonna put a tape, we'll put a flex 45 because we want to really square the angles 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, it's really good. Look good.
It does look, it looks great. One of the things that I was thinking about was doing drywall returns, but I decided against it in the end. But how often do you do that? And what is a drywall return?
For right here?
Yeah.
It's like customer asking me for corner bead, we put a wrap right here. And we put any corner bead they want. It's regular, it's a square or bonus. And about 3 or 5 size. Normally right here in California they're asking for 4 size corner bead. Sometimes in the custom houses or something like that, they put it wood like you want to do right here today.
Yeah.
That's why it's not drywall right here.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's gonna put a trim around the windows. It's gonna be look pretty.
Yeah.
I hope I can see the house finished because all the time I make the jobs and I never see the houses when it's everything finished.
Yeah.
I just come in and tape in and leave it and I never see the house because look when everything is really finished.
Well, one question. So when a customer comes to you, what do you want to know, like up front, before you come and measure the job to understand what it's going to be like?
Sometimes the customers they want I give an estimate with a picture. The pictures or video is give me idea, but it's better I come in and look the job. When you send me the plans, I can make the estimate. But sometimes the price is different with a highlight right here. But this is a small job. So I give a regular price for the customer. Yeah, but it's everything else. I just need to know if they needed a 5/8, if they want a 5/8 in the drywall or ½ inch, or they want a texture, a spray texture, hand texture. Because a spray texture is one price, is the more cheap, but a hand texture or a smooth is a more expensive. The more expensive is a level 5.
Yeah.
And I have a customer, the contractor, they wanted 2 coats in the level 5, so that's expensive.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like almost $3 for square foot.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 coats.
That's a lot of work.
Tape up the scheme, level 5, sending everything, and put another coat level 5 and sending again. So that's take, it depends on the house.
Yeah.
We stay in the house in Oakland for 1 month. Right there we put 2 coats. It's 460 sheets.
That's a big job.
It's a lot, it's a big house.
That's like 10 times this almost.
Yeah, if you want to use, call me for I can give you my number.
Yeah, of course.
It's 616-258 1679, sorry. And 1679-258-1679. Area is 616 because I moved from Michigan and I never changed my number.
Nice.
So you guys can call, text.
Last question. I decided to go with 5/8 drywall all the way through.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Like, do most customers go for ½ inch on the walls? Or?
Normally we're using the ceilings. When it's going to the spray texture, we put it regular sheets because it's not gonna be heavy.
Yeah.
But when we put a smooth, I prefer 5/8 because it's ½ inches. It can move it more easy and it's gonna be crack.
Yeah.
So 5/8 is really good for smooth. It's better.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when they want to buy the material and it's when they say use labor and it's for texture, I talk to them, okay, put ½ inch for you save money because it's for texture, you need a 5/8.
Yeah.
But it depends. Sometimes the plants and the city say they want a 5/8, so we need to follow rules.
We needed to do 5/8 on this side actually for the fire rating.
Yeah.
Because it's a property line.
Yeah.
But
right here we put a 5/8 everywhere.
Yeah, we put it everywhere, which is good.
It's stronger.
It's stronger. It's going to be
stronger.
very quiet in here. Yeah. Well,
Thank
Ricardo.
you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Ricardo.
Yeah.
All right. So this is me getting ready to do some of the painting here. Painting is fairly straightforward. I think there is an art to it. You got to be detail oriented, and to get a really good finish, to get good edges, it takes a lot of skill. But for something like this that's completely white, I felt pretty confident taking it on myself. over a weekend. And I used an airless sprayer. You can see I'm spraying and then I'm back rolling here. This is the primer coat. And another important thing to remember when you're using an airless sprayer is to make sure that your windows, anything you don't want to overspray on, is covered. That's actually really crucial. But as you can see, it went on pretty well, and then after this, it was a case of 2 coats of the Benjamin Moore white that we had chosen. So once the ADU had been painted, the electricians came back and they installed the light switches, the outlets, and the lights, and also some temporary power from the main panel. And this really changed the look and feel of the ADU. At this point, it was really beginning to come together, and you get a feel for what the space was going to feel like. So you can see I've got the hardwood flooring beginning to be laid out, just getting an idea for the pattern and the layout. Those are the engineered hardwood flooring boards there. Not all of the electrical work has been done at this point, of course. We've still got cabinets to go in. There's still a decent amount left to do, but at least we have functional lighting, which makes it a lot more usable, especially in the evenings. And so this is the bathroom. We've got some of the tiling in. The floor isn't completely finished at this point. This is a marble tile on the walls and the floor, and that's the pocket door there that we've installed. So you know, of course, we've got some trim to put around all of the door casings, and I think we're gonna actually apply some polyurethane to that pocket door. The cast iron tub is under there. Of course, we've got some finish plumbing to go in as well. But of course the kitchen isn't even in at this point, so and neither is the water heater that would be on the left there, and the laundry. And this is a rough opening for the internal door. Because we went with 5/8 inch drywall, a typical door that you'd pick up at Home Depot is a little bit more narrow than that, so you have to build out the jambs. The electricians installed this ceiling fan, so I'm just figuring out how to use it with the remote. The good thing about this fan is you can also control it using a hardwired switch on the wall, at least for the lighting function. And if you turn it off and on, it sort of it knows to turn on. You don't need to use a remote. And this is the little cupboard. You can see we've still got the coverings on the windows. That fan actually works really well. Yeah. And beginning to get an idea of what the space looks like from inside, you know, looking down the corridor into the living room. So here's the sub panel that the electricians have put in, and you can see all the breakers for all the various circuits. What we've been able to do here is, because the electricians ran the main service entry wire from under the ADU to the front of the house, they're able to land that on a 60 amp breaker on the main panel for the house. And so that's a temporary measure. It allows us to get power in here, to use some sockets, to use some lighting. And of course, when we do our service panel upgrade and add an extra meter, we'll connect it up to the ADU.